this is going to be a fun topic. This is Star Wars Oddities. You're going to see weird, obscure, unusual, not always, on the up and up kind of items that have been offered in Star Wars over many years. So I want to introduce you Yehuda Kleinman, Joe Iglesias, and Darren Thomas.
Hello, everybody. Let's talk about odd stuff.
Let's get weird.
Let's get weird. So Star Wars is fun to collect, and it's filled with so many different things that we can collect. The three of us love to delve into the odd, into the strange. And every year we like to bring different things to this panel, and we get great feedback from most people who like it, and of course the other people who walk out with their eyebrows crossed and happy to get their Star Tot. Everybody will get Star Tots, even if you're one of those people. So welcome. We all broke it up into different ways because oddities, they mean different things, and we are a bit bohemian, the three of us, and so we like to think of, just do it your own way. And so the way I chose it was, I decided to pick a line of action figures, or figures, because that's exciting to most people, and I wanted to pick a line of figures that started very early on, when Star Wars was new and exciting, to little kids in the 70s like me, before I had arthritis, and when I had hair and my teeth weren't capped. And I didn't get hurt by rolling over in bed, it was a different time. No, but so, and then a line that came when Star Wars was starting to die and nobody really cared about it, and Kenner was like, we can't sell any more Star Wars toys, and then a line came out, and it came out in a different place. It's a line of figures, and so I chose only two lines of figures to talk about. One I discovered a couple of years ago when Joe sold me two of them and found out that they were licensed, and he's not as well. For any event, Joe sold them to me, and there was no literature about them or anything like that, and I found out they were from Colombia. And they're called Yuppies, and we'll be talking about those as well. The first ones we're going to be talking about today, the first line of figures, is a line of figures that came out 2 months after Star Wars came out in the movie theaters. 2 months, 8 weeks. Kenner took a forever early bird package, empty envelope, no toys for Christmas, buy a bag of nothing and you'll get toys later. These were out in 8 weeks. And it was all because of a guy named Neville Stocken out of Burlingame, California, about 7 hours up here north by car. And he was a sculptor for a new line called Archive Miniatures. TSR started a new thing called Dungeons and Dragons, which was really exciting, around 1974. A mental cerebral game with no toy pieces, something strange for people like us, who collect everything in every corner of our homes. I know everybody in this room has a lot of stuff. And so Archive Miniatures came into play at that point, as did other companies, when the following year, in 1975, people who were coming up with these realms needed these little figures to be able to play and to be able to move around. And initially they were dragons that were in dungeons, I guess. And along with that, whatever they could come up with, a lot of J.R.R. Tolkien stuff, hobbits and things like that. It started branching out into ghoulish things with little Frankenstein characters and Dracula. And that was around 1976. These things were burgeoning. And then Neville Stocken, this guy who was making these really cool sculpted figures, they're about an inch tall out of lead. A fun thing for children to play with, lead. He was getting it from, I don't know if he was, certain of the companies were getting it from, and I'm not sure he was, from old tire and wheel companies that were soldering pieces together, and they're scrap. He was making these toys out of them. But he was melting them, and he was a brilliant sculptor. And he created these amazing things. And he created a line of 27 action figures within 8 weeks that were ready for a convention like this in the great city of Staten Island. Staten Island, New York City. Yeah, it's part of New York City. People don't know that. It's the fifth part. The Staten Islanders here. Let's hear it for Staten Island. Real? No, you've heard of Staten Island? That's pretty. So, you're really from Staten Island? I love Staten Island, by the way. And I alienated the entire audience. Staten Island is wonderful. So anyway, with Staten Island Origins Convention, he came out with this line of 27 amazing figures sculpted. Figures Kenner didn't come up with never in the vintage line, for decades later. These are 10 of the original figures sculpted, and they're great. He was doing these from memory. There was little literature available at the time. He was doing it from, I don't know, little bits of posters, and he came up with, look at that Grand Moff Tarkin there touching his chin. You could see Peter Cushing there, can't you? And, you look at the R2-D2 and the Stormtrooper and the Greedo and the Vader, and he really captured it. And he wanted to get these licensed, and he was excited. No worries about the baby. I had 3 kids. I missed like 3 celebrations. It was horrible. I'm glad you made it. Go comfort that lovely child. Make sure she gets a star tot, please. Make sure the baby gets one too. Okay, yeah. So over here we see 10 of the original figures, right, that were put out. Next we'll see, oh my, look at this. Look at that. You all love these, right? Do you even know these existed? These are older than... First line of action figures. They're not really action figures. I mean, you have to break them to move them. I mean, they're pretty sturdy, but figures, okay? Amazing. And when you look at that bantha, what do you see? You see a bantha. You understand Star Wars. You see the movement. You see the movie. He made different poses. Those pieces are meant to be broken off those sprues that went between the gaffy, but they're pretty amazing. Here we see, look at this swinging band, man. Can you hear it? Like, do, 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 do. You watch it, you see it, you see it. You see the snitch, you see his, well, we'll talk about her later. It gets interesting. Apparently, they were a couple. Not everybody knows this. It's deep in the EU, and it started 2 weeks or 2 months after the premiere of Star Wars. So these are some of the original 27. Am I jumping? Oh my God, I jumped. So, George Lucas didn't give him a license. Actually, rumors are George Lucas got a set of these and fell in love with them. And has a set of them, and it's pretty well I believe it. I don't know if it's true. But I want to believe it. But in any event, I think he did fall in love with them. I think he does have a set of them. And, but the licenses were already given to Kenner. They were already given to factors to make these little jewelry. They weren't having that. As it is, they were paying this huge tax to be able to create this. So this was all shut down. And Neville Stockin, after a very brief period, and he was selling tons of these, by the way, tons of these, had to shut down. Actually, so big that they were introduced in 2 months later after Origins Convention in Dragon magazine. And he was selling them through the mail after that. And I think that's when George Lucas got a hold of it and all these things started happening. I think Charles Lippincott found out about it, and he's the one who ultimately shut it down. So, well, Neville Stockin, he wasn't ready to stop making these. So he said, what if I retool them? What if I modify them? These get cool. Let's look at the modifications. So this starts to talk about some of the later added modifications. That is Darth Vader. Not only are the figures modified, but the names are modified. So those 27 figures have modifications of all these other aspects to them, including horns, which could be ground down. This was Far Dread. And next we'll see our rabbit trooper with a bunny tail, floppy tail. You will see ears. You will see Wooly, Chewgumma. And you'll see Far Dread. And look at R2-2T. He is able, you pop off his head. These were made for people to still have Star Wars figures, by the way, gamers, to grind them down, knock and get rid of all that other stuff, and turn them back into Star Wars figures. Here you see the later Moondog Maud's Cantina Band, which was originally the Cantina Band, now with horns and ears that could be removed. Lo and behold, these were later bootlegged by another company. They bootlegged the bootlegs. They took some of Neville Stockin's figures And what they did was they made some more. They called them pewter figures. They charged actually more for them. I don't know if they're really made out of tin, but they called them pewter figures. And it was a set of copies of Neville Stockin's figures, came in a blue case. Probably looks like a retooled drill bit case. Another company called Archive Miniatures made another bootleg, but not of Neville's pieces, of those already bootleg pieces by that other company. They keep losing detail, looking more horrible, more ridiculous, but they did something cool with them anyway. They decided to offer them in 4 different colors. So there was a gold-plated, a silver-plated, a regular plain, and a painted set. The painted set is one of my favorites. 17 figures were sold in a set, including 4 figures that weren't by Neville Stockin, which they chose to add because they felt that they wouldn't be sellable without maybe R2 having their 3PO, and they made what my co-author, Ron Salvatore, who wrote a great article with me on this, the Fugly Four. These are not by Neville Stockin, so it's like some fever dream melted stormtrooper and some like Planet of the Apes Han Solo and some bad figure, but it's a cool set of 17. They made keychains, necklaces out of it. If you want to read more about it, go to, of course, the Great Archive, where we have this new article written by me and Ron Salvatore, and Ron Salvatore's great wit and writing really elevates it to a different level. Also spoken about on the podcast by the great Sky Payne and the great Stephen B. Danley. Next, I'm going to have to talk really quick because, oh my God, I used up my time. I'm sorry, boys. I swear. Still, Yupi's, I've already spoken about it. Look at what I did in 2017 or something. Here's Yupi's. These are out of Colombia. Yupi's, food premium. They would give you this little plastic toy made in around 1989, actually based off Kenner figures. Somebody from Colombia said, I have to make these Yupi figures. I'm going to buy whatever Kenner toys I can get, copy them, and make them about 1 inch big, make them in multiple colors, and sell them with a little piece of candy, hoping the kids don't eat that plastic toy, which ultimately is why they stopped doing it. But they had license to make these. These were licensed by Lucasfilm, and they made them for the Flintstones and for the A-Team and for Hanna-Barbera and DC and Marvel. You can get any of these. Colombian children collected these, and now you can look at a Kenner figure, and you can see how they really bloody copied it. They included the dopey, ridiculous weapons. It looks like they just copied, and those are all original sculpts. You fall in love with these quickly. You hope you don't swallow them, and you can't stop buying them. Here is, look at that. That's 21B. Focus collectors love. Look, Joe, they couldn't do a cloak. They just couldn't bloody do a cloak. So it looks like this little weird gumdrop weird thing. But the rest of them are amazing. You put a multicolored grouping together. They all say LFL on the back. These are licensed. I got my first 2 by Joe Iglesias. He threw them at me because he's not crazy about licensed stuff. He goes, I found 2 of these. I don't know what they are. And he got Yupi, they're from Colombia. I was like, oh. That's when I researched them, fell in love with them, and wrote another piece on the archive, which you can find about them. There are 36. They made a game board for it. You can mail away and get that. And they included, because they got confused, 4 GoBot figures. Also listed by an LFL on the bottom. But look how gorgeous that looks and fun to collect. Similar to probably an original package, recent 10-bag find of overstock Yuppies. These are, by the way, pretty rare. They go for like silly, stupid money. Interesting, there's an archive piece. Oh my God, I went forward. There's an archive piece that we wrote about this. All this is on the archive. I was bored. I have no life. I wrote a lot about them. If you want to read more, you can read more about it. And that's that. And here's the great Joe Iglesias. Thank you.
All right, now I might be as animated as Yehuda is, but let's have some fun with this.
He's a liar.
Now, I originally was planning on doing my portion of the panel on the oddities through the eyes of a focus collector. I was originally going to do Hoth Troopers, as you can see on the screen right now. Then one of my friends jokingly posted that would be a great flex for me. I didn't want it to be a flex. I wanted it to be something fun. I wanted it to be something that was entertaining. I wanted it to be attainable pieces in there, which my Hoth Trooper collection, there's a lot of unattainable pieces. So let's get away from those and go with something a little bit more interesting for everybody. R2-D2. R2 was one of the first 4 figures. Him being a robot, they made tons and tons of different things for him, both licensed and unlicensed. And it's just a great focus to have. Is Mike Ritter in the room? No. All right, there we go. Mike knows. Now, I'm going to start with one of my favorite pieces. We're going to end with one of my favorite pieces. This right here is the Takara wind-up R2. It came out in Japan, but didn't just come out in Japan. It came out carded in Canada. Where that connection was made doesn't make much sense, but that was a great piece that, I didn't find out until I was an adult that came from Canada, because I actually had a friend that had one when I was a little kid. And that's, probably one of the reasons why I like the R2 stuff. But now, other wind-ups would include this little guy. He was a little countertop thing that you'd see at the store at the end of your thing, or this right here, which is considered a rack toy, like pretty much in like 5 and dime stores, which were the 70s equivalent of a 5 and dime. 70s equivalent of a dollar store. And as you can see, he's got googly eyes, and he's pretty fun. And up next, this is a U.S. company called Arco. They did Space Wars. Yep, R2 has arms in this situation, but that's okay. And that came out in 2 different cards. There's the regular Arco card, and there's a Woolworths card, which is a little less detailed in the card, and everything else in the card's the same except for that little Woolworth logo and the price tag built into it. Fun things to collect, not too over-the-top expensive, and just really cheesy and fun. Now, let's go to Japan. Japan had so much product out there for Star Wars, once again, both licensed and unlicensed. And R2-D2 was one of their favorite things to do, so let's dig into that a little bit. This was one of the first bootleg pieces to come out of Japan. It looks like it's based on McQuarrie's original sketches for R2. It's, for how old of a piece it is, it's not that, once again, not that expensive when it comes up. They come up a few times a year, so it's not ridiculously rare. And once again, it's just cheesy looking, it's great, but you can still tell it's R2 without it needing to be R2. Then, in the US, we had to ban this guy so kids wouldn't shoot their eyes out. In Japan, they decided to combine him with R2 to give us a rocket-firing R2. Now, we have no stories of Japanese children choking on or losing their eyes, but if it was in America, you bet that would have happened. Now, in addition to rockets, they also had R2 shooting discs. That sounds like a safe bet. I'm sure many family pets were chased around the house with that. But Takara loved their rocket-firing toys. Now, let's delve into model kits. A company called Amai did sets of model kits. These ones here have R2 with a German helmet on, R2 with a turban, R2 with a pilot's hat on. Going even deeper into the helmet stuff, they also did a set of minis. 16 minis, all World War II themed, with Japanese, US, and German troops, all as R2-D2. Not the most politically correct toy for Japan to make, but it was the 70s, and who the hell knows what they were thinking. And if anyone has any of those that they're not pictured there, I want them. Also, there's a company called Arai that made these guys right here, the Space Convoy set. They did other sets that weren't R2 based. This one's a set of 4 that came in actually a sealed together pack of 4. Recently, Starcase Japan did their own homage to it with this guy right here. I don't know what the Cantina band member is doing, trying to go after R2, but it looks like he's going to get a drink off his head. Now, what's next here? Oh, we got Disco R2. Crown is another model kit maker out of Japan. They also have a lot of stuff in the U.S. They did a line, there's a couple of Falcons they did, and they did this great rendition of R2, which unfortunately the model inside the package is nowhere near as cool as the package. So, and if you like gambling, a pharmaceutical company in Japan uses as a giveaway. The different little beads that you see right there, it would come out of it if you pulled the arm down, and based on that, you either get a discount or something free from the pharmacy. So gamble on getting your prescription for free. It's better than the healthcare system now. And since ice cream has been such a topic of discussion lately, we have this lovely R2-D2 shaken ice cream maker. Also a licensed piece from Takara and Tomy. Now, if we're getting into food-based products, this guy's one of the most famous, the Cobot. Coca-Cola didn't have the license when they first made it. They got the license after the fact. It was already produced and waiting to go out, and luckily they struck a deal. It's a cool piece. There's lots of, side pieces that go along with the Cobot, which someone was supposed to send me some pictures and didn't. Because I don't own them, and I was waiting on that, but that's okay. And these guys here, if you're collecting like small stuff, these guys are Mexican unlicensed candy containers. They have this little like pixie stick kind of candy in them. They're in a million different colors. They're very easy to find, and they're just fun. And there's a close-up one with the little topper they had on it there. And if we're going to go a little further into the candy stuff, we have Obey You from Chew Gum Warriors. Doesn't look much like R2, but he's definitely supposed to be Star Wars-ish. That's the key with a lot of this stuff. It skirts the line sometimes very close, sometimes very far. And also in the candy realm, from Spain, we have these multicolor R2 candy dispensers. They don't come up very often, but they're pretty cool. You gotta be careful because a lot of times over the years, unless you clean them out, the candy will leak and destroy the stickers on them. So you gotta be careful with this kind of stuff. Now, talking about candy, let's get into Halloween costumes. Ben Cooper made a variety of costumes. A lot of people collect Ben Cooper costumes. They're great, fun little sideline collectible. They're kind of weird, kind of cheesy. And then the bootleggers got a hold of it. Imagine being the kid whose grandma bought him this to go out on Halloween with. It's like Charlie Brown. I got a rock. And there's his name. His name's Uranus. The jokes just write themselves. Now, let's get into some shooting games. The Galaxias shooting game from Spain had a variety of robots on it. You can see a Dalek in there. You can see a couple other robots. Of course, we got R2 right there hanging out with everybody. And more shooting game stuff. Space battles, a few different versions of this. R2 is always one of the targets, but in this one, R2 fights back. And what do we got next? We have another shooting game with the Cosmic Monster. Look at this little guy. Who wants to shoot him? And of course, your personal hygiene, R2 wants something to do with that too. We got the Space Wars comb and brush set there with soap. Very few of these survived because the soap ended up deteriorating and destroying the package. Luckily, this one has remained in one piece for now. But R2 looks like he's put on a little weight there. And 3PO is just, hanging out for good measure. And everybody knows this guy here with his calculator. Forget about him. We've got Math Man, the R2-D2 calculator. Absolutely ridiculous. And when we're going into other things for your home, we got phones. Little R2-D2 phone. I wish I'd put a picture of ET in here with that, but you get the picture. And then we have nursery night lights. I don't know how safe this would have been in some little kid's room. I don't want to know. The company that made these did a whole bunch of different ones. They're only discernible by the little sticker on top of the box or opening the box. It's actually, structurally looks like a pretty good product, but I still wouldn't trust it not to melt being on overnight. And then we get into some ceramics. We have some very functional ceramics, such as banks, such as lamps. Then we have stuff that's a little more decorative, like these guys here. These are different sculpts that are much harder to come by. I put a Mexican bootleg R2 next to the other one for scale, just to show how big they were comparatively. And this little guy here, this was put out by a company called Milo Ceramics. They did an R2 and they did a Vader. I still don't have an R2. Once again, if anyone has one, see me after the panel. Sometimes my panels are my want list as well as trying to show off some good stuff. And next up, we got a puzzle. These guys were sold in gift shops and hospitals, and once again, as rack toys as well. There was a set of 4 or 5 of these, and the R2 once again looks a little bit disco. But, excuse me? I had rack toys. Nice. Yep. Now, what's next here? This little guy with his painting of Venus behind him and nice landscape. Tough piece, but the card art's beautiful. It's a really, really fun piece. R2 looks pretty cheesy with his matchstick pop-up lightsaber going on there. Or we can go to these little carnival prizes here. They came in 2 different sizes, and yep, they gave R2 arms like a lot of the bootleggers did. And tough pieces again. They've been found as far as Australia. Great piece. Good challenge to find some of these pieces and add them to your collections if you want to go with all the weird stuff and have a R2 focus you want to expand on. Then we have some Mexican R2s. They have modern and vintage in here. Most of the modern ones are reasonably easy to find. They're cheesy as hell. Some of them are a little bulkier than others. They've got ones where the arms, legs are separated. They're just good pieces. Multicolors, anything you'd want in an R2. Then we have Playmobil. Playmobil did their own whole lines of like space figures, and they also did their R2. They had different number designations. He was like a little worker droid for them. He was also given out in a YPS magazine, which, back to the original subject that we were going to talk about, YPS also gave away a licensed Hoth Trooper. So that magazine ran the gambit what they gave away. And last piece from my section is a vintage Polish handmade R2. This piece shows just how far parents were willing to go to give their kids something from Star Wars when there was nothing licensed available for them. And stuff like this is such a huge reason why I collect the stuff I collect, and why it's great because I'm always finding stuff I never knew existed. And while this isn't a mass-produced piece like everything else I've shown, it just has a lot of heart to it and is, just shows how deeply Star Wars impacted everyone. And next, we're going to Darren.
Awesome, Joe. Thanks, everyone. So I figured, as you guys all know who Yehuda and Joe are, that I'd talk a little bit to start with about my journey to the dark side. So flicking back a little bit, not Anaheim 2022, but actually Anaheim 2015, this happened. So during this very panel, you'll see here actually likely in this very room, that Joe, John, and Ron are getting ready to take their audience into a journey of Star Wars oddities, similar to what you've done today.
Since he's in the room, our grand leader back here, Gus Lopez, who organized all of us.
Who's this Yupi?
Yeah.
Who's this guy? So this is where it happened for me. So 7 years ago, and I'm not sure if it was since then having 2 kids, or a global pandemic, or collecting bootlegs that turned my hair more gray, but it's probably one of those 3 things. So thank you, Joe, for getting me into this. All right. So after that panel, I went down to the show floor and I met who is now another good friend of mine, Patsy. And Patsy took me on this similar journey that I want to take you on today in terms of three Hoth Troopers. So we're going to start with what everybody knows, which is the Kenner line, or the Palasoy line, so the regular trooper. But not everybody could get hold of these toys. We're very fortunate in parts of Europe where I'm from and here in the US that these were readily available to us. But in other parts of the world at that time, due to various reasons, sanctions, geopolitical climate, all of those things, they were not readily available. So different countries took it upon themselves to make their own versions. So this came out of Hungary. And actually, if you look at the screen and look at these 2 guys, pretty similar, right? Pretty good job. This copy of the Kenner figure. And then this one, which is my favorite, came from Brazil. So this is the Brazilian version of the Hoth Trooper. So quite visually different here, but it's not just visuals that make bootlegs so great. There's other aspects to it, the tactile nature of it, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. So I want to talk about weight. And actually, I had this the other way around. I had the European weight first, but Yehuda told me off, so I flipped it. So anyway, the Kenner line is roughly 0.7 ounces in weight, at least for a Hoth Trooper. The Hungarian line is 30% lighter than that. So they're around 14 grams, and I don't know if you can hear it on the mic, but they're pretty hollow. You guys can come and look at these after the panel as well, if you like. But the real heavyweight in this mix is this guy that's made of lead. So following the theme of what Yehuda was saying, lead being one of the most appropriate materials for creating kids' toys, that's what the Brazilian line was made out of. Okay, So remember that number, 3.88 ounces for my people, 110 grams. So from that same line, anybody want to have a guess as to what the Gomorrean guard weighed? 1 pound. Yeah, you'd think probably about that. All right, so it's actually 50% lighter than the Hoth Trooper. So why is that? Right. Well, the reason for that is towards the end of the line, they pivoted from lead and started making figures out of resin. So actually, the bigger figure is actually lighter than the guy in front of me here. So what does that tell us when it comes to these oddities? Well, it tells us that you should always unlearn what you have learned. Right? There's always new things to learn, always surprises, and that's what I found when I kind of veered off the course of collecting the regular Star Wars figures, that there was much more to it than that. So actually, that Yoda I found on a business trip in Argentina out in the wild a few years back, so they're still out there too. All right, so going back to model trends, I happen to think that these are beautiful. Now, most, probably a very high percentage in this room would disagree, but I think they're fantastic. So there's a couple of incarnations of Leia here. There's Leia in the Boucher outfit. Han Solo, again, all lead-based. And then one of my favorites, the Tusken Raider. Okay, so Model Trem had this line of figures that we're very familiar with, which is now known as their first series. And there was no license in Brazil at the time that these were manufactured, but some of you may know there was a company called Glassleet that got the official Lucasfilm license back in the day to produce their own range of figures. For Model Trem, in order to continue the line, they had to pivot as well, and they created their own second series with their own characters that they created, a fantastic set of figures. So I want to show you some of those today. So this is part of the second line. But does anybody see anything a little bit familiar about that figure that they produced? That's right, possibly a brother from another mother. So that one's pretty easy to identify, and there's a lot of examples of this from that line as well. So let's get a little bit more crazy. You guys see anything there that looks familiar? All right, let's see if I can help. All right, what if we started with this and then added this? What do you think? Put a gas mask on it and call it good. So there's lots and lots of things to learn from this and see from this, but I happen to think that these are incredible. So, all right. So given all of that and everything that you've learned from Yehuda and Joe, it's your turn. Let's have a quiz. We're going to play a game of licensed versus unlicensed. And in order to introduce this, I want to thank Vinny and Mike. These guys have put together a fantastic patch run. So there's a line of patches that have been created by these guys that a lot of us bootleg fans have sponsored. So while I get the prices out, this is a piece that Vinny put together explaining what this is. And you'll find these, by the way, bootleg patches dotted around the fan tables and from some guys that I'm going to introduce you into a moment. But essentially the story is that these patches have been banded together from the far reaches of the galaxy, from the staunch defenders of the outer realm, and whispered rumors persist that others like it are lurking in the darkness and hiding their true measures. Signs and symbols are everywhere, as you're about to find out. Are they bootlegs or just a conspiracy? There's 7 parts to this, so act quickly to track down all 7 parts and complete the puzzle before they disappear into the depths of the unknown. So, if you're good at this game, you don't have to go and hunt these down because, thanks to Mike and Vinny, they've donated a first prize of the uncut patch set, along with the chase, and along with the sponsor patch. So, hope you're all paying attention. And then for the second prize, we have the sponsor patch as well. So whoever finishes second, and as a bonus, a Model Trem Society patch as well. So if you're not lucky enough to win the quiz and you need to look for the participants, I don't know if everybody wants to stand up, but Vinny, Mike, myself, I have one of the patches, Drew, Trevor, Jim, and Gordy. These are the guys that you need to find the pieces from. So if you don't win the quiz, look for those guys. All right, so I need between 20 and 30 people that want to play to stand up. So please stand up. 20 or 30. This is going to be somewhat self-policing, but also Joe and Yehuda have eagle eyes, so they will spot any cheating. I need a few more. Let's get a few more up. All right. Okay, you guys. All right. Oh, and you're playing Sea Leonard. Okay, very good. Let's start easy. If you think this is licensed, put your hand in the air. If you think it's unlicensed, put your hand down. All right. Very good. This is licensed. All right. So everybody that got it right, stay standing. Well, this guy. Hands up if licensed, hands down if unlicensed. Okay, so, all right. This is unlicensed. All right. This guy. What do we think? Hands up if licensed, hands down if unlicensed. Licensed. All right. This one. Hands up if licensed, hands down if unlicensed. Yep, it's licensed from the Disney parks. Okay, what about this belt? Hands up if licensed, hands down if unlicensed. Let the force be with you is unlicensed.
Great one.
Okay, keeping with the belt theme. Hands up if licensed, hands down if unlicensed. Licensed. Okay, let's test some knowledge about watches. Hands up if licensed, hands down if unlicensed. Unlicensed.
I knew that would be.
All right. Okay, what do we got? We got 3 standing. Okay, hands up if licensed, hands down if unlicensed. It is licensed. All right, very good. You guys are still in it. Ceramic. Hands up
It's
if
actually, it's a blow mold plastic.
I'm sorry, Yehuda. Okay, blow mold plastic. Okay.
Blow mold plastic.
All right. I don't want to mislead the
no.
participants.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so hands up if licensed, hands down if unlicensed. Licensed. That's all right. We're still going. We're still going.
Right. And I think we're going smooth. We have
All right.
Questions and such, yeah.
we did great.
I just want to make sure if I didn't move.
Hands up if licensed, hands down if unlicensed. All right, I see some intimidation going on there. Some mind games. You're both right. All right. Oil lamp. Hands up if licensed, hands down if unlicensed. You're going to settle it here and now? All right. Very good. All right, we'll get your prizes after. So the prizes are done, but we do still have a few more quiz questions. So if anybody wants to play just for fun, stand up. Stand up if you guys want to play. All right. Next one. Predating the Happy Meal. Burger Chef. Saturday Star Wars Fun Day. Hands up if licensed. Hands down if unlicensed. All right, yeah, you guys are good. All right. Next one. Hands up if licensed. Hands down if unlicensed. Yep, Disney Parks Pride Collection last year. All right. Yeah, it's modern. Last year, Disney Parks. Yep. Here's a fun one, and I'm going to give a clue here. This was produced by Hot Toys, who we all know and love. So, hands up if licensed, hands down if unlicensed. They produced this before they got the license.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. All right. Probably one of my favorite ones. Baby Yoda with too much milk, or something in his milk. Hands up if licensed, hands down if unlicensed. Okay, all hands down for unlicensed? Bought by myself in Target just before Halloween this year. All right, is everybody out? Okay, we've actually got a couple more if anybody wants one more round of licensed versus unlicensed. All right, up we get. Whoever wants to play.
This is great. Thank God.
All right, some people know this story. Hands up if licensed, hands down if unlicensed. All right, yeah. I knew I wasn't going to fool this crowd. It actually, so official, signed by him as well. So there we go. All right. So this one comes with another clue. So those of you that remember Fisher-Price, did they get back into the game of kids' toys? Hands up if licensed, hands down if unlicensed. Unlicensed. All right. So for anybody still in it, tiebreaker time. So to the nearest decimal point, how many of these weigh the same as one of these?
Math is hard.
Shout them out. Nearest the ball wins. 4.5. 4.5? 5.5? 7? 7? 3.4? Wow, now I got to do some math real quick because the answer is 3.7. And you said 3.4, which I think trumps 4.5. And the very last, actually, if you really want to stretch yourselves to the nearest decimal point, how many of these, the Yuppies that Yehuda was speaking about, weigh the same as one of these?
Please, more.
74, 120, 118, 24,
32.
77. How many? Jason? 50? 124, Lennon? All right, the answer is 36.6.
Oh,
there we go. So
that's crazy.
that was the last of it, but again,
And that would,
thank you, Vinny. Thank you, Mike, for sponsoring the prizes. And as a sneak peek, coming to a galaxy near you at Star Wars Celebration, whenever that may be, is the next line of these patches. So thank you, everybody.
You doing Q&A?
Sure. Yeah.
All right, now, if anyone has any questions, you can go to the microphone over there and ask us whatever you'd like about the stuff we talked about today, and go right ahead.
Feel free, if you want to come and feel the weight of these yourselves, you're more than welcome.
and take them home, right?
And please don't take them home. Thank you, everybody.
Could I actually just say thanks to Adam Marks for helping me with some of the pictures, and also to Mark Rusciano, who's been helping us with all of this and getting a lot of this done with his company, M. Rouge, and to Gus Lopez, and to CJ Fawcett, who's actually not here, who did a lot of this work, and they get a lot of credit for us, not just here now, but for us to be able to watch this again in the future. So it's all going to be available if you missed any points. Remember to go to the archive. the swca.com. If you want to read more about Yuppies, or if you want to read more about some of those pewter figures, interestingly, Yuppies, there were very few of them around, but kids were using them in Colombia to make little mangers. And they were making mangers out of like the Flintstone characters and out of Ewoks and out of FX7 and He-Man. And once these became popular after I wrote that Yupi article, they all started coming out. So, but I want to adopt. I'm Jewish, but I want to adopt making this little manger at home every year as part of my holiday with all the different Yuppies. So that's.